Hello, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to my live show. Of course, we're discussing immigration law. Today, we're going to be talking about the Afghanistan situation. We're going to be talking, more about humanitarian parole, but we're going to be focusing and zeroing in on, what we've been doing for the Afghans and how we're trying to get them out of Afghanistan. Okay, so as you sorry about that. I need to turn this off. Guys, forgive me for that loud beep. Okay, so yes, we're talking about humanitarian parole and then some commonly asked questions about what a humanitarian parole is, how to file it when it's needed, and then we can talk some more about what to submit for your humanitarian parole application. So currently, as you guys know, the Taliban have taken over Afghanistan, and there is unrest. So people are trying to get their families out of there because they are in danger. People's families are being shot in Afghanistan. So we're going to be talking about how humanitarian parole can help these people leave Afghanistan safely and then come into the United States. Okay, so let's see. Let's start here. So, what is humanitarian parole? Guys, welcome. If you join in later, you're very welcome to this live video. So what is humanitarian parole? That's one question we've been getting. And humanitarian parole, it's a temporary discretionary authorization, of course, to enter into the United States. And it's usually granted on humanitarian grounds or significant public benefit reasons. Okay, so that's it. It's a discretionary relief and it allows people to come into the US. So normally to get into the US, you need a visa. You need some type of visa. You either need a non-immigrant visa, such as a B2 or an F1 or a K1 visa, or you need an immigrant visa. Okay, the immigrant visa is, the visa that gives you the opportunity to come here and then obtain a green card. So those are, you need visa, a type of visa to come into the United States. But if you don't have a visa, which will give you authorization to come into the US, you can have something known as a parole. A parole is a travel document that gives you authorization or permission to enter the US. And humanitarian parole is granted on humanitarian grounds. Okay, so there's such as this public emergency, there's an emergency in Afghanistan, and so the US government is allowing people to come into the US with a parole or a travel document that shows that they have permission to come into the US, and that the Department of Homeland Security has actually given them permission to enter the US. Okay, so that's a humanitarian parole. And on August 26, 2021, this was almost a month ago, USCIS published guidance on their website, for Afghan nationals who are seeking parole into the United States. Interesting enough, this page has been archived. Normally, when a page is archived on the USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services website, it means that the information is out of date, or it's just been archived, that it's no longer current. And it's just pretty interesting because the situation in Afghanistan has been evolving, like rapidly evolving, and so have the directives. Okay, the directives have also been rapidly evolving, so it's been archived. However, it's still relevant guidance on how we're trying to assist Afghan nationals leave Afghanistan and come into the United States with a parole document. Okay, so how can you apply? An individual apply for humanitarian parole? Guys, drop me your comments. Of course, I want to see who's watching, so drop me your comments. How does an individual apply for humanitarian parole? So here is it. Anybody can request, okay, humanitarian parole. And yeah, of course, we're trying to expedite these applications because it's an urgent humanitarian, it's an urgent request. And there's no point in applying for a humanitarian parole and getting it approved 10 months later. That serves no purpose. It's urgent. So their expedited requests. And basically, an individual can request for a humanitarian parole, and you can request it through the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. You file certain forms, okay? You file certain forms to request a humanitarian parole. Drop me your comments. Let me see who's watching. Let me know you're here. Then, so the first thing is that your application is going to contain usually three. It's going to be made up of three parts. Sometimes four, depending on the circumstances. So let's go through what you need. The first one is the application for travel document. Application for travel document, which is the I-131. Okay, so with that document, of course, you are petitioning. You are going to tell them some more about your trip, how many days you want to be in the United States, why are you seeking parole, where are you coming from, where do you want the consular processing to be done, because once the parole document is approved, it's a conditional parole. It will be sent to the consulate where you are based. So in the Afghan situation, it will be sent to Kabul, but Kabul, the consulate in Kabul has been closed down. So currently being sent to consulates outside of Afghanistan, such as Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, other countries. So those are some of the details that are needed on the I-131, where you are based, your address, where the document should be mailed to, why you need this travel document, what's going on, tell us the emergency. Then you need your I-134. Okay, the I-134 is, of course, the application, the affidavit of support. It's the equivalent of the I-864 for family-based immigration petitions, but with the humanitarian parole, it's an I-134, and it's normally referred to as a soft type of affidavit of support by some attorneys, because of course it's not hardcore like the I-864, which is a very hardcore tax document where you should be proving poverty level using the I-864 PP, what is the poverty level, what's the household size, how many people, calculating the income and then dividing it by the household size, and just looking at everything, the dependents and how much a person is making. So with the I-134, the point is that anybody that is coming into the US, okay, if you're coming into the US, you should not be a public charge. If you are a public charge, you are inadmissible. They don't want people coming again to burden the US economy, to burden the taxpayer. So you should have somebody who's saying that, okay, I'm willing to sponsor this person. I am their sponsor. I'm going to be taking care of their food, their accommodation, their medicals. They are not going to be taking public benefits like Medicaid and food stamps and housing benefits and all of that. So the I-134, you need a sponsor. You definitely do need a US sponsor, somebody who pays taxes. So we do, you submit supporting documents like tax returns, W-2, 1099 if you're an independent contractor, things like that. Okay. Then of course you need your supporting documentation. Lots of supporting documentation. We won't go into too many details, but you need, an affidavit from the person who is, for example, petitioning the beneficiary to come on humanitarian parole on the parole document. So they need to, swear an affidavit talking about the type of danger they are in, why there's an emergency. So yeah, some of the applications we filed, some of the women activists who are in Kabul have been threatened by the Taliban. So you need to state that maybe they are activists, they defend human rights and whatever, and they are in danger currently. That's why they need the parole document. Of course, it's structured in a way that is acceptable by the USCIS. Guys, you guys drop me your comments. Let me see who's watching. I know this is like a little, this topic is a little, very legal and technical, but yeah, we can still make it fun as we are trying to talk about it. So the fourth document I spoke to you guys about is the I-912. That's the request for fee waiver. That is not always required. Of course, the fee for the parole, the humanitarian parole, the parole document is $575. And if you are in hardship, you can request for a fee waiver, but of course this slows down the application, so it's not normally recommended. But if you don't have any choice and you cannot absolutely pay for the 575, then you can file this form to request for the fee waiver. Okay. The next question we've been getting is how long? Oh my goodness, this is an emergency. Attorney, how long does it take for the humanitarian parole to be processed? So the USCIS is being kind of good these days. I mean, we filed one. My office filed one on Friday, or was it Thursday? And we received the receipt notice on Sunday evening. You know, they actually did send. That was a very quick turnaround, because normally receipt notices you'll get your receipt notice sometimes after 3 weeks, sometimes after 4 weeks, sometimes 2 weeks. So this was quick, and the cases are actually also being processed pretty fast, sometimes depending, of course, but ranging from even 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending again on the volume of applications that they are processing and how fast they can respond to you. They are definitely prioritizing these Afghanistan cases, so it shouldn't take too long. Of course, there are delays, especially also if you're doing the fee waiver. People have seen delays with those types of applications, but yeah, they're trying to prioritize the Afghan cases. Okay, so the next thing is, if a person is outside, that's the next question, is outside the United States and humanitarian parole is conditionally approved by the USCIS, what happens next? What's the next thing? Okay, you are in Afghanistan and it's approved. What do you do next? Okay, so the next step is that, so as always, if you're outside the US, your application is normally a two-part process. It's just like the family base. You file a first part of the application here. If it's approved, you will need to fill out a non-immigrant visa application. You cannot escape that. So digitally, you can file it. It's the DS-160, and once you fill that form, you will have to schedule an appointment with a U.S. embassy, and then you have to appear in person for an interview for them to question you, and then basically grant you the document that you need. And then when you arrive in the United States, the CBP, that's the Custom and Border Protection Officer, they will inspect the travel documents, and then they'll issue the parole to you if it's authorized. Okay, so when you come, you'll be issued the parole. Okay, so let's talk about what is a port parole? What is port parole? So a port parole refers to the process where the CBP, that's the Custom and Border Protection, those are the people that are at the airport. Okay, CBP Customs, they're the ones that when you get to the airport, you know, there's a long line and you go through them. They ask you questions. What are you coming to do here? Okay, where does your family member live? How long were you here the last time? All those types of questions. Those are the CBP officials. So port parole refers to a process where the CBP will independently parole a person at a U.S. port of entry, like an airport. So they'll independently parole you. And normally this happens if you board an evacuation flight and you arrive in the United States. Okay, so so the port parole is that, you see, sometimes some people don't have the opportunity to go through the USCIS humanitarian parole application, so they get a port parole. So if they board an evacuation flight from Afghanistan, once they arrive here, they will be given the port parole. I mean, that's the process. The port parole is where the CBP will independently give them, or they'll parole you into the US, and that is not part of, you know, it's very different from the formal process, the formal application where you file the humanitarian parole. Okay, so that's the port parole is done at the port of entry. Okay, at the airport, for example. So that's the port parole. And then the next question is, if a person is paroled by CBP, do they need to apply for humanitarian parole? No, they do not. They don't need to apply for that, because the parole it's giving you authorization to enter the US. So that's fine. Okay, so you can either, you know, of course, you can either do the formal application process, or if you, of course, jump on an evacuation flight, then once you get to the CBP and you tell them, you know, you answer their questions, and they feel that, they find that in their discretion they should issue the parole document to you, then you don't need to do a subsequent parole application. So does parole provide a legal status? No, parole does not give you legal status. So a parole is a discretionary tool that will just allow you to make a lawful entry into the US. Normally, when you come, you need to try to adjust your status through other means. For example, you may be an SIV, that's a special immigrant visa. Those are people who have people in Afghanistan who have worked with the US government and can get green cards through that process, or you can file for your family, like your husband or your mother or your wife or your, just a family member, or some other, asylum, or those types of applications. So parole does not give you a legal status. So it's just a non-immigrant. It's a non-immigrant type of entry. It's just permitting you to enter the US. That's it. Even a parole is not considered non-immigrant status. It doesn't give you any type of status. It's not a legal status, just entry, permission to enter the US. How long does parole last? So paroles last usually 1 year, 365 days. But because of the situation, the people are being granted 2 years. Certain Afghans are being given 2 years. So the Department of Homeland Security is actually granting certain Afghans 2 years of parole. Okay, so normally the duration of a person's parole is specified by Department of Homeland Security. That's the agency that authorizes the parole, and it's marked with a stamp in the passport or other entry document. Okay, so it will be marked how long it is. So typically it's just for 1 year, but people are getting 2 years, some people. Okay, so after being paroled, what legal options do you have? We talked about this already. So normally, if you're given parole, you should, of course, contact your immigration attorney, and then they'll review your situation and then tell you what you need to apply for, what you qualify for. Okay, sometimes some people come on parole, they already have pending applications, so that's fine. But those who haven't filed any type of application, they could do, as we said, an adjustment of status based on a relationship with a qualifying family, based on a qualifying relationship to a family member. So, for example, spouse, mother, child, whatever. Yes, if you're trying to adjust, you have to maintain a valid and expired parole document. With adjustment of status, you always try to be in an unexpired state. Okay, that always complicates it less for you. And then you can also do asylum if you are suffering persecution based on a specific characteristic that you have. And then the special immigrant visa status if you have been employed by or on behalf of the U.S. government, as I stated earlier. Okay, so can parole be extended? Technically, a parole cannot be renewed. You cannot renew a parole. Okay, you can request a reparole, and what that means is so when you request a reparole, you can extend the parole period from 1 year or 2 years or whatever. So if you enter on port parole, you can seek reparole through the CBP at any deferred inspection office. So you need to find out the Custom and Border people are the one that gave you the port parole. So you will need to go to the deferred inspection office, and then the CBP will you can seek reparole through the CBP. Okay, but if you entered on an approved humanitarian parole, then you need to file a new application with the USCIS to initiate the reparole. And normally you need to file this 90 days before the expiration of your parole document. Okay, so that's the time frame, 90 days before the expiration. So what are the rights and responsibilities of Afghan paroles? Work. You can work here in the US. You can apply for work authorization through of course, the I-765. And then you can work if USCIS approves your application. Okay, then of course, education, right to K-12 public education, regardless of your immigration status. Kids cannot be blamed for these things. So access to education, regardless of your immigration status, they can be educated. Then law enforcement. They have the right to remain silent if they are approached by law enforcement or police officers. And then yeah, compliance and notice. Of course, they always have to comply with follow the conditions of their parole and seek other immigration benefits or reparole at the end of the authorized parole period. Of course, if you change your address, you need to notify the USCIS by filling out the form AR11. Okay, so guys, that's the discussion on parole for the Afghans. And the situation now is that oh, let me add one more question we've been getting, like, oh, I don't have a passport, I don't have a valid passport, can I still get approved for humanitarian parole? Absolutely yes. So some people don't have valid passports but are still getting approvals for the humanitarian parole. Okay, so US, of course, normally to be approved for humanitarian parole, you should have a valid unexpired passport. But if you don't, as part of the application, we explain why you don't have a valid passport, unexpired passport. And then we need your tazkera. Of course, if you're an Afghan national, that's a photo identity document, and your travel document can be processed with that photo ID. And yeah, that's it. You don't need a valid and expired. I mean, of course, that's always ideal. However, they understand the urgency of the situation. I mean, humanitarian parole, like there's a sudden emergency. Not everybody had the opportunity to actually go and renew their passport. And we're learning from the Afghan nationals that it sometimes takes 4 to 6 months to actually even get a renewed passport. And of course, the Taliban have taken control, and you know, there's danger in even trying to renew your passport. So you don't need to have a passport. The practical problem people are having now is actually how to leave Afghanistan without a valid and expired passport, because the Taliban are only allowing people with valid and expired passport to leave. And so theoretically, of course, you can get a humanitarian parole document, a parole document, even if you have even if you don't have a passport. But practically on the ground, how are these people making escapes without passports? So those are situations that the people involved would have to, you know, of course, look at what is safe for them and their families at the time, and then do that, and also keep their ears on the ground for strategies and ways of, you know, trying to evacuate even without a valid and expired passport. Okay, so guys, I hope you guys do have any questions. Drop your comments where you're watching from. Let me see you, and let's chat a little bit before I get off. I hope all is well with you guys. Okay, so if you guys don't want to comment, then I'm going to have to leave you, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have learned something from it. So of course, I represent immigrants all around the United States. Call me on 802-780-0564. My number is right there on the screen, and I'll be happy to assist you with your immigration problem. So guys, be safe and take care. We'll see you again in the next live video. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.